Welcome to People Love Process. In this movie, I want to demonstrate how to combine found textures. A lot of times I'll go texture exploring. I'm not really covering that, but I kind of stumble upon them, and that's what I want to share in this movie. So we'll be creating textures, using textures like Bitmap TIFF images and freeform gradients and effects to create a unique promotional design. Now I'm going to start off first in Photoshop to show you how to create a found texture or create a texture from a found texture. But we're not going to do our work primarily in Photoshop. We're going to then switch to Adobe Illustrator, and it'll become a staging ground for composing a design that I'll walk you through. We have a lot to cover, so let's dive right into it. Now, when I parked downtown, I was going to a store. I was walking down the sidewalk, and I came upon this car, and I go, man, that's like a drivable texture set. So I took a photo just to show you the source here, but if I go ahead and turn on the layer above it, this is the type of photography I was starting to capture. And I wasn't using anything great for a phone. Textures are very forgiving. I was just using my iPhone. But if I'm standing on the left front side of the car looking straight down on the panel that covers the wheel well, you can see the wheel in the bottom left, so I'm looking straight down at it. But this is a great surface texture here, and I wanted to capture that. So I usually take photographs of things like this because I can always turn it into an asset I can use forever. Textures, the best part about textures, in my opinion, is they never go out of style. You know, it's not like in 10 years, oh, that texture is so, mid 2000s or whatever. Nobody cares. The textures are timeless. So that's kind of the nice thing about it. So when I'm creating this, I'll use layer effects. So I'll go in here, and first of all, I'll just change it to black and white. Then I'll go back down and I'll go to levels like this, and then on levels you can just play around with the levels here, and I'm trying to blow out the contrast so we get rid of gray and we make it more distinctly black and white, and it has a lot of contrast to it. So I'll go ahead and drag this one over quite a bit because I want to bring in black like this, but obviously I don't want all that gray value still in there, so I'll pull from the right hand side over like this, and we'll go somewhere right around something like that. Now, I still think there's too much gray down here, but this is where I'll start on something like this. And if I think this looks good, then I'll go ahead and commit to it. We'll just go ahead and flatten this file. So we'll go, where is my flatten? There it is, flatten image. We'll go OK. So it's still an RGB file. So I go into mode and I go to grayscale, change it to a grayscale now. And I can continue messing around with it, but I won't bother to use layer effects at this point. I'll just go ahead and go up here to adjustment, and we'll go to levels. And I'll continue to blow out the white because I don't need all this gray down there. So I'll blow out that. We'll do this. Continue to blow it out. So I'll end up with something like this. Now, obviously, I don't want this top part here. So that I can just simply select like the pencil tool, bump up the size here, select white, and I'll just kind of paint out the areas I don't want. Now, I wouldn't use the pencil tool to finesse this texture in its final form because it's going to be a hard edge. And down here, I kind of want to break this off. But I'll continue to mess with it and blow it out. And I just wanted to show you the simple kind of process. It's nothing, anybody can do this in Photoshop. You don't have to be a guru. When it's all said and done, I might end up with a texture like this. And you might be thinking, well, this looks like it has gray in it. Well, it just looks like it because it's at this size. If I zoom into it like this, you can see it's distinctly black and white. Right now, this is about 100%, but this is really kind of large. So if I zoom in a lot, this is almost 300%. You can see it's pretty much distinctly a black and white image, but it's more importantly, a bitmap TIFF image. Now, if I didn't want this whole bottom part to be on here, if this is for the edge of a bottom edge of a document just to break it up down here, this would work great because what's white will be transparent when you place it into Illustrator, and what's black you'll be able to color. So if you had a background that was like a red background and you wanted the edge broken up, then you could color this white and it would look like it's degrading. So, and I'll show you that when we move to Illustrator, how that works. But if I wanted to break this up, I go to one of my Photoshop brushes I created, and it's scatter shading brushes. We could grab this one, dark shading one. Let's go ahead and blow it up in size here. Right now it's only 400. We'll go to 17. You can see how this is broken up on an edge like this. So I just make sure I have white selected. I go down here and see how it breaks that up so it's not distinctly a hard edge. Now this is still, in my opinion, needs to be broken up more, but I just paint out the bottom part. I don't need like that. I go to, let's see, I have another one in here, medium, like this. Maybe it's my dark one. Let's go ahead and blow this one up more. Like this. And by the way, these shading brushes are all in the exercise files, both Photoshop and vector scatter brushes. There we go. That's the one I was looking for. It's more broken up on the inside. And I'd use this and I kind of just scrub over my image because I don't want to drag it in a straight line, or otherwise, even though it's broken up, it won't be as believable. I want to break up this edge just so it's going to kind of be centered in the middle of here, but it kind of diffuses as it gets outward. So you can scrub it. You can go ahead and just click once like that. And I might want to take some of these artifacts off up here. And again, you can go pretty large with these. Yeah, all the way up to 5,000 if you want. So if I make it go up even more, it's going to cut into that and eat away a little more like that. So that's all I do to kind of create a unique kind of texture like this. Now, I wouldn't leave it exactly like this. We don't need all this white area, so I just kind of figure out where I wanted to crop it, something like that, and then I'd go ahead and crop it, and then I'd save this out as a bitmap TIFF image, and that's super easy to do. Right now, the mode we're in is bitmap. So you go from grayscale to bitmap, and then I could save this out as a bitmap. Now, that's what you need, a bitmap. You can place grayscale TIFF images in Illustrator, but white won't be transparent. And you can color them, but white will still be opaque, and the black area of the pixels you can color. So those are colorable too, but they're not as flexible as a bitmap image. So let's go ahead and jump to Illustrator, and I want to walk you through how I compose a design. I utilize these kind of assets. I just wanted to briefly show you in Photoshop how you can just take a photographic image and create a pretty cool texture. And as you create these, you can build a whole library and archive of these resources that you can use for the rest of your career. I created this about 5 years ago. You can see all the brushes here. These were all started from a texture that I just turned into a round brush and then blew it out to get more assets. And once again, these are provided in the exercise files along with the vector equivalents. Now, vector scatter brushes bloat a file, but they still look pretty cool, and I show you some sample usages of them in the exercise files as well. So let's go ahead and switch over to Adobe Illustrator. So we'll switch there like this, and I have this nice logo type design, punk rock, that I did. And the reason why I'm showing you this first is because the first thing I want to cover is what's called a freeform gradient. So if I go ahead and open up the gradients panel here, you have linear gradient, you have radial gradient where it goes from the center outward. A linear gradient is just a directional gradient, whether it gradates from one color to another color, left to right, up and down, bottom to top. That's what you'd use. If you want it to be central and kind of radiate from a central point out in a circular fashion, you'd use radial gradient. And the third one is freeform gradient. Now, this was added, I believe, 4 or 5 years ago. And when I first used it, I'm going, oh, this is cool. So I'm going to take this image, and if we go to the appearance, notice it's a compound. All compound means if it's not group, it's a compound. It acts like a singular vector object. So I can color it this color, I can color it blue. Doesn't matter. We'll just keep it black for now. But if I go back to the gradient panel, we're going to do a freeform gradient. So I'm going to select it. And right now, you can see we're only getting one control on this. Nothing showing up in the N and the K or in the R and the P area. And when I first tried this freeform gradient, it was on a compound path. It was this kind of tribal mask I created, and I just wanted to get some inconsistent kind of freeforms going in it. And I ran into this. I'm going, what's going on? This isn't doing anything. Yeah, I can go big or medium or small, but it's not doing anything. What's going on? Well, it took me literally 2 minutes to realize freeform gradient tool doesn't work on compound paths, which is absolutely nuts. It's stupid that it doesn't work on them, but that's the way they designed it. So let's reset this to black. And I wanted to use it for this design. And I'm going to show you, it's a workaround, but it's how you have to approach it if you want to utilize it the way I'm going to show you. So we're going to instead just take this shape. And if I go ahead on this, let's just color this this magenta color, turn on our type again. You can see I just made sure that it covers everything our type is. And if I select our type here, I'm just going to go ahead and set that as an outline. I'll lock this layer so we're not interacting with it. I'll take this and I'm going to go ahead and just make this, let's see, we'll make this a white color like that. And now I'm going to click my freeform gradient, and it acts the way it should. It automatically populates it with 4 nodes. You can add more nodes if you want. But on these, I'm just going to keep mine black and white. So I want to add this node. We'll move it over here. I want this to be black, so I'll do that. I want this one to be white. We'll move it over here like this. I'm going to put another one here. I want that to be white. And the size, you can adjust the size. This is large, you can go medium, or this is a small. So there's not a lot of flexibility in terms of sizing. We'll make this one large. We'll go down here, and I'm going to put one right about here. But on this one, I want this to be black like that. And we're just going to keep adding stuff as we go on. So I'll put one here. I want that to be white. We'll do another one up here. I want some black coming in up here. So we'll make black. And I'm just trying to make my kind of my freeform gradient a black and white image, because I'm going to ultimately use an effect on it. We'll go ahead and add another one here. This will be white. Might move this one up. We need some black down here, so I'll put this. I'll go black. Looks like we have too much over here, like this. I'll put a white one here just to kind of break it up a bit. By the way, if it has some weird artifacting in it, you can always go to View by CPU, and that way, if you have placed images, it's going to kind of redraw those accurately. It's kind of frustrating that that's still an issue in Illustrator, and it seemed to be resolved for years, and then it's came back recently. It's not a big thing. It's just kind of annoying. We'll add another one here. We'll put black here. I want some white here to break up that at the top, kind of like that. We'll do one here, and we'll make that a little larger. We need one down here. Get some black coming into the bottom, like that. And you can position these, and obviously these could be different colors if you're doing something else and you want to do that. We're just sticking with just black and white here because it's going to be the effect we're going to end up doing. So I think that looks pretty good. I think I'll move this one over just to break up that area a bit. And I think I'm going to make this a little bigger. Something like that. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add an effect to it. Now, if I select this, let's drag out the appearance panel. So you can see the appearance panel. We have this gradient fill. You just want to select the fill of this object. And now all we're going to do is we're going to apply an effect to it. So I'll click on this and I'll go to pixelate. We're going to use the halftone effect. I'm going to go to color halftone. It's going to bring this up. And this was the whole purpose of color halftone from day one, is to create color halftones. But we don't want a color halftone. We want to keep it black and white. So we're going to set the size. We'll do 15. And all these we're going to remain 25. Think of channel 1, 2, 3, and 4 as CMYK. If you change these to different angles, then you would get that color effect with cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. But this will all make sure they're basically kind of like stacked. Now, this isn't vector art. This is a raster effect that we're applying to vector artwork. And so specifically that we're going to use in the typography here. So with these set, I'll click OK. And I think that looks pretty good. Now, what we can do is unlock the layer above it, which is our punk rock logo type. And now I can just go ahead and mask those together so I get what I was trying to get when I did it the first time. But you can see this is the only way you can do that now is by creating a mask. It's not a big deal in terms of a workaround. It's just kind of frustrating that for whatever reason, Illustrator has problems with compound paths, and it's nuts. It really shouldn't. It should never be an issue. So we're also going to use halftoning on other things, specifically on the visual narrative we're going to use in the background for this design. So if I turn on this, this is a JPEG image. JPEGs, you can do the exact same thing as we just did on a freeform vector object gradient and turn it into a halftone, which is a raster effect being applied to a vector-based image. Well, you can start with a raster-based image. This is just a JPEG, and we can go ahead and apply an effect to this. So we can do the same thing. We can go down to pixelate, color halftone. You'll bring up the settings we had before. We'll keep the 45-degree angle, but we'll make the dots a little larger. We'll go 17, and we'll go like that. You can see how it creates a nice vector-based, or not vector-based, but a raster-based halftone. Now, right now, if I select this, I can go over here and let's say we click on the magenta. Well, it'll create a black and white, but you can't color it. It says it's colored with this magenta, but it's not showing anything because it's a JPEG. So you don't want to use JPEGs, in my opinion, if you're using this methodology of composing elements. You want to use a grayscale TIFF image. So I have the exact same image here. The only difference is one's a JPEG, RGB, one's grayscale. It's just a grayscale black and white. place TIFF. But if I select this, and let's go to the appearance panel here, we're going to go ahead and apply the same effects. So I'll go to effects, I'll go to pixelate, I'll go to color halftone. We'll use the exact same settings. I'll click OK. It'll halftone it. Notice there's no color to this, but we can apply a color to it. So that's the beauty of it, is I can have this selected here, and I can go ahead and apply this color to it, and it will actually apply the color to what we created into the halftone effect. So that's kind of cool. Then, of course, I can take a copy of this like this, and this is on top. But once again, because it's a grayscale, what white is not transparent, but that's okay. We can have it selected, go to transparency, and set the blend mode to multiply. And now you can get some really cool effects by applying blend modes and colors and halftone effects to a raster-based image like this. Now, one of the best formats of bringing content into Illustrator and composing like this, and once again, Illustrator is primarily a vector-based program, but it has Photoshop effects built into it. That's how it does the halftoning. You can do that exact same halftoning in Photoshop as well. But it's nice because it doesn't always have to be vector-based. Yeah, you can do an intermix, a hybrid of sorts between vector and raster-based images. So if I turn this on, this was an image I saw in an old Popular Mechanics magazine that I bought back in the 1990s. I used to go up to this place in Portland called Periodical Paradise, and they had all these retro magazines, and you could buy them from pretty cheap. Once it became popular, it wasn't no longer cheap. But again, this is a raster-based image. But if I go ahead and select it, let's go and lock those two. If I select this, notice it has no fill color and no stroke color. Well, it's just black pixels. Those are opaque. White pixels are transparent. That's why we can see through it. And this means I can go in here and just color this if I want to blue like that. And that's pretty cool. And now that we have multiply applied to this, you can see how it interacts with the art underneath here. That's pretty good. We can zoom in. You can see how it's interacting with the imagery underneath it. So that's kind of a cool feature about Bitmap images. So again, if I turn on our cyberpunk type here, I can turn on the freeform halftone that we created here, select this, it's masked in here, but I'll just go to multiply. Now we get the effect I wanted to get on this typography like that. That's pretty cool. We have some secondary elements and type that I bring in here. Now that edge texture that we created from the car, I just want to show you how I utilize elements like that. So if I turn on this layer here, you can see this comes from that car image that we were messing around with, and I blew out the sides so I could place it like this and we could utilize it. So this is where using layers in Adobe Illustrator makes composing easier, because once you have something in place, you can just lock those layers so you don't move it and just focus on the layer and the order of that layering to compose your elements. So on this one, I just want to bring this over and we'll just position it. I want it to kind of eat through part of the lettering here. The background's white, so I'm going to color this white, and you can see it as it adds a nice distress and kind of degrades as it goes through the other elements. Now I created secondary type here. So this is all a promotion for a tool, or for a tour, a punk rock tour. Let's have a list of cities we'll bring in here. We have other surface texture we could bring in here. And again, these are all what I call spot colors or spot texturing. And all spot texturing is, if I grab this one and move it out, this was from a textured paper that I went ahead and just kind of scanned it in and blew it out just to get that. And then I broke up the edge so I can take it and I can just position it wherever I think it looks good. And it's an easy way to kind of integrate that kind of organic vibe within a design like this. So it works really well. Here's a texture any of you can do that's super easy to do. Whenever you get ready to toss your toothbrush and replace it with a better one, save it. And then you can take that, you can put India ink on it like I did well over 15 years ago, splatter it on paper like this, and it makes a really good speckling kind of texture creator. Super easy to edit in Photoshop too, but like that. So we're just going to take this texture, and I think we're going to colorize this pink just to bring in some of those specks everywhere. Here's another one, another texture. And on this one, we'll just go ahead and do black just to introduce a little more black into this. Like that. You could change the color. Maybe you could make it blue like that. Blue would look good as well. So it just depends on what you want to do. So I just wanted to show you how you can think differently about Illustrator. I love the fact that you can compose like this. Now, I started doing this before I used Illustrator. I've been using Illustrator since CS2. That's when I had to switch from Macromedia Freehand. And I did this in freehand for years because I used to work at a design firm. We did a lot of sportswear design for different companies. One of them was Crazy Shirts based out of Hawaii. And this was a great way to do t-shirt design because it was super easy to separate the colors. So for a project like this, I used Illustrator once again as my staging ground for composing and layering my design elements. I do this all the time for work like this, which are more of a collage approach than they are distinctly vector-based, even though it's a mix of both raster and vector-based images. Other than the typography and initial gradients, everything else is raster-based, but it's most definitely a fun way to work. So I encourage you to figure out a design and give these methods a try and see what you can come up with. Now, of course, if I was sending this to a client, I would rasterize this whole file as a high-resolution CMYK TIFF image and provide that to the client to use for printing if they had to do printing. I wouldn't give them a Illustrator file with all these placed images. You're just kind of asking for problems. So you have to keep that in mind as well. If you like this channel, I please beg you to subscribe. I want it to get out to more people. It's really fun. I get emails all the time from people overseas who watch it. And it's a lot of fun to see what they're creating after learning something. So that's what I want to do. I want to encourage you and help you improve your vector building skills and your design skills and everything else that goes into supporting creativity, such as creating your own texture assets. So all these texture assets are included in the exercise file, including all the brushes for both Photoshop and Illustrator. Now, I'm not even showing you the vector-based scatter brushes. I'll probably save that for another movie. They bloat a file quite a bit. Just keep that in mind. It's just no comparison between Photoshop and Illustrator in terms of brush technology. Photoshop, in my opinion, is superior, and I wish they would just bring it into Illustrator. It really is needed. So make sure to check out the exercise files. You can find a link to that in the description below this movie. Until next time, thank you for watching People of Process. And as always, I hope this content helps you to improve your own creative process.